1809. The Atlantic separates the fledgling United States from her former enemy, Great Britain, and her former ally, France. Britain, under the aging and now demented George III, is locked in a struggle with France for the mastery of Europe. In that encounter, both nations preempt the high seas. A former soldier, general, consul, and now emperor, Napoleon, battles England with a spectacular cunning. Ships of neutral nations, the United States chief among them, are searched. John Quincy Adams, son of the second president, experiences that indignity firsthand.
It's another British man of warfare. She's training her guns on us.
We are in contended waters. The British have boarded us merely, I'm sure, to verify our nationality.
Yes, come in. Beg pardon, Mr. Adams. Captain Bickford's come once, and will you attend him in his cabin?
Thank you, Mr. Hinch. I was about to do so. Thomas, see to it that the ladies are not disturbed.
Right, sir.
Your permission, Captain.
Come in, sir.
Mr. Adams.
Captain Bickford informs me I've the privilege of meeting an eminent American. Be seated. I'm Lieutenant Mountgarrett with a boarding party from HMS Stately. You may have noticed her standing off your starboard quarter with 21 guns. Your passport, if you please.
Mr. Adams,
Captain.
John Quincy Adams, Minister, Plenipotentiary from the United States of America to the Court of Russia. Traveling with his lady, infant son...
He's ordered me to turn the ship about, and he's threatened to seize her if I do not. And he proposes to take one of my sailors to impress him in his navy.
Under what authority?
This, and the instructions of my captain, the directions of the Admiralty, and the mandate of His Majesty's orders in council.
Unless some tragedy has befallen us since we've put to sea. My country ceased living under His Majesty's rule 33 years ago.
England is at war with France, sir. France has an alliance with Russia. Any ship bound for Russia is presumed to be friendly to Bonaparte and therefore England's enemy.
Yes, yes. Tell me, Lieutenant. Do the instructions of your Admiralty supersede the acts of your Parliament?
Of course not. Why?
In the rule of Queen Anne, by the Act of 1708, your country, along with all civilized ones, subscribed to a rule of international usage. The agreement states, and I quote, all ministries, embassies, and consulates are protected from intrusion by diplomatic immunity.
A ship in the middle of the Baltic is hardly a ministry.
This ship, Lieutenant, and you might refer to her papers, was fitted out for the express purpose of carrying my ministry to St. Petersburg until she docks there. And as long as I am aboard, and so long as she flies the flag of my country, this ship is an American ministry. And any intrusion or hindrance upon her is, by your own law, a punishable crime. At sea, I believe that is called piracy.
It's ridiculous.
Is it? Well, perhaps your epaulet gives you the authority to declare your country at war. Your captain might not be grateful to you for committing an act for which he would have to answer.
Confound it, I'm a military man and not a sea lawyer.
Perhaps if you return to your ship and discuss this dilemma with your captain, he might be grateful to you for your concern for his career, if not your own.
I'm returning merely for consultation. I hope that is clear. This ship is still arrested until my captain decides otherwise.
Yes, of course. And when he does, just to save you the trouble of boarding us again, may I suggest that you simply dip your colors as a signal for us to proceed?
Dip our colors? That would be a salute.
You have my leave, Lieutenant.
St. Petersburg. Tsar Alexander I and his minister, Rumyantsev, grapple with the problems of being allied to Napoleon.
Majesty, another communique from the Emperor of Europe. Being Napoleon's ally is almost as difficult as being his enemy.
He He requests, Your Majesty, that we bar all of our ports to whatever shipping he has not liked. But temporarily, of course, it would stop certain of our trade. There's no question about that. But in the end, it would be most damaging to the English.
In the end, yes, but in the meantime, England is merely annoyed. With her great navy, she can stop any ship at sea, take all the cargo she wants, and pay no duty.
But once Napoleon defeats England on land, breaks up her navy, in my opinion, a third power will rise to challenge her on the seas. One with no continental ambitions and an enterprising merchant navy.
The United States.
Yeah. If of course she survives. There's more than a small question that she will. The government controls only a small portion of a great continent. The native Indians are a constant problem. The Spanish and the English still control much of the unpopulated land.
This morning I received an appeal from Adams, the American minister, about American ships, which we have, at Napoleon's request, detained in Archangel, Riga, and other of our ports.
Yes, Adams does press us on those ships.
I like that man, Adams. He's somewhat severe, but highly principled. From an illustrious family, too, for a wilderness country.
Dear Louisa, oh, you're not ready yet. We shall be late for Rumyantsev's reception. I completely forgot about the time. Dispatches arrived from Washington 6 weeks after they were written.
I wonder what's happening at home.
What?
I wonder what George and John are doing right this minute. I hope our letters arrive before their birthdays.
Our sons will have a good many more birthdays, and we will share in quite a few of those. I will leave you to finish your own wardrobe. The carriage is undoubtedly waiting.
John, go to the Rumyantsevs without me. Oh, I'm feeling perfectly well, but you can say I'm not.
That would not be the truth.
Well, just explain my condition.
Has someone offended you?
Not someone, John.
What?
That dress? It's seen and been seen at 3 court balls, 4 embassy dinners, and...
Lisa, the country pays us what it can afford. I will await you downstairs.
But, John, this reception will merely be another conference between you and Rumyantsev. I would gladly put on the dress and go if you would spend the evening there with me. We could dance, John.
Dance?
The Polonaise.
Oh, yes, the Polonaise. I should certainly do that very well, shouldn't I?
But it's a duty, John. Some Russians might consider it an insult if you didn't show a proper appreciation of their culture and their customs. Please, John. One Polonaise. And no talk of ships or wars.
We will spend the evening together. I will await you downstairs and tell the carriage you'll be ready.
My dress, Olga. John, isn't it time we ventured onto the dance floor?
My dear Madame Adams, now if it were in my power, you would grace each of the conferences I seem always to be having with your husband.
I'm afraid you'd find me extremely slow-witted at politics.
Most of the men I have to deal with are too. Excepting, of course, Mr. Adams. I've gotten to understand him quite well, you know.
Well, he's going to surprise you tonight.
Oh, really? Still, I'm quite sure of what he is thinking at this moment. Of the United States ship that was impounded 3 days ago at Riga.
Actually, sir, I was thinking not only of the one, but of the 22 others that are unable to unload their cargo.
Yes, deplorable. And the Tsar himself expressly used that word.
Well, if he feels so strongly about it, perhaps we can expect some action.
Mrs. Adams, what a pleasant surprise. Good evening.
I didn't see you at the reception last night.
No. Oh, General, good on.
Madame.
I see you below.
If I had been fortunate enough to have been born, Monsieur Adams, I should never permit you to be absent from my side. Come, there is one thing I must show you.
Thank you, but...
Our painting has just arrived from Paris for Count Rumyantsev's collection. The painting is a religious one. I understand that many of your countrymen and women, of course, are Puritan.
Oh, yes, that's true. Especially in Massachusetts.
That is where you were raised?
No, I plead guilty to having grown up in Europe. My schooling was in Paris.
Madame, that explains it. Your charm. That certain look in your eye.
The look in my eye, General, it can only come from searching for my husband on occasions like this.
Yes, but there are bales of cotton on those ships. Wool. And you need them. I'm willing to obey the laws of Russia, but not the edicts of Napoleon. Now, there must be a way.
My dear Adams, be reasonable. It was merely infuriate the French. Excellent, is it not? From Bordeaux.
I did it, Joe.
Of course, the tone of the English court has quite ruined me. When I married Count Rostov, I didn't realize I was placing myself in virtual exile. I suppose to your eyes, Mrs. Adams, all this seems quite fashionable. Madam Oplensky, do you know Mrs. Adams? Mr. Adams is a representative of the United States.
My husband is minister to the court, Countess.
Such a serious man. Count Rostov describes him as a bulldog among spaniels.
My husband is a fighter, Countess. Will you excuse me?
That dress, I've seen it so often, I almost feel it belongs in my own wardrobe.
But my dear Adams, now really, we must support Napoleon's continental system. It's an accommodation.
Yes, but one that will no longer be binding when... I am sorry. If Russia decides to withdraw from that arrangement. Supposition merely based on rumors.
That supposition proved to be true. In the maze of European politics, allies changed as rapidly as partners on the dance floor. Soon the French ambassador had revealing words for the American minister.
My dear good friend, I shall be utterly frank with you. Napoleon is dismayed that the Russians have withdrawn from our continental system. You, of course, must be gratified. Nearly all your impounded ships are released. The French consuls have been urged to be most liberal in granting trading licenses to your merchant marine.
Ships then leave our ports and are immediately captured by French privateers who claim that your consul's signatures are forgeries. That the ships are British in masquerade.
How are we to know? The stars and stripes are a popular disguise at sea. Britons and Americans are similar in appearance and speech. If a seaman swears on the bones of George Washington that he is one of your countrymen, what can we do? How do we distinguish between the Britisher and his cousin? Now, if your country and France were, shall we say, firmer, more committed allies...
My dear General, that responsibility is my government's, not mine. Oh, I took the liberty of having these prepared for your convenience. The registry of all American ships now bears a secret mark that should enable your countrymen to determine which ships are British and which are ours. A list of prominent merchants in most American seaports. Any captain purporting to be from those ports would, of course, be familiar with their names. And a glossary of common nautical terms, including some profanity. But the difference is noted in British pronunciation and American to enable you to distinguish between one Anglo-Saxon and another.
Couldn't sleep.
Come, keep me company. It's not your condition.
A baby? Oh, it's too soon for discomfort, John. This baby will be a girl. I know it. A healthy, happy, beautiful child. Her brothers will adore her. I was happy when our firstborn was a son. The truth is, I'm more comfortable with girls, I think.
Yes, well, with 6 sisters, you should be.
If only we could all be together when the baby's born. John, the letter from Mr. Madison.
President is a prolific correspondent. Which letter?
You know, John, the one your mother caused him to write. Only Abigail Adams could have gotten the president to authorize our return home.
Well, that was my fault. I've complained too much in my letters to my mother about the expense of living here.
Your complaints were justified. 6,000 rubles a year. This.
It is adequate. But Spartan.
An unfashionable neighborhood. Too small for us to entertain.
Well, with the constant parade of balls and parties, no one seems to miss our hospitality.
We couldn't entertain if we wanted to, if it were necessary. John, I know you're handling our country's interests well, but how long must this go on?
Louisa, this is an outpost of government, not a home. Our home is in Massachusetts. And it awaits us.
When? When will we see it again?
When my duties here are finished. Despite my mother's well-intentioned intercession and despite President Madison's kind permission for us to return, it is up to me. And we cannot leave at this time. Louisa, it is vital that we effect a commercial treaty with Russia. We must have a powerful ally to help us keep the seas open.
When will that treaty be effected? How old will this child be when her brothers see her for the first time?
The boys are safe, Louisa. They're being well taken care of by my mother.
You say they're safe. It takes 3 months for a letter to get through the blockade. Who knows what may have befallen them since the last letter was posted? I don't. You don't. I have 2 children here. One asleep upstairs. One here, under my heart. I have 2 others. Continents away. 2 sons who should set the example for Charles Francis to follow. When will he get to know them? When will I? When will you?
The whole continent of North America appears, Father, to be destined by divine providence to be peopled by one nation. Peace for the next few years is essential to the plan.
In Washington, some voices speak of peace while calling for war. Some rage against France, others England.
No man in America desires peace more than I. But I prefer the troubled ocean of war when demanded by the honor, the independence of our country. If we are forced between France and Britain to select our enemy, I am for war with Britain.
Mr. Monroe, you have just been made Secretary of 18 not very United States. Henry Clay and his Western friends are determined we battle Britain.
If we declare war on anyone, Massachusetts wants it to be France, and then there is the faction that demands war on both France and England.
And demand for peace, but so strongly for it that they will fight anyone who's against it. The Constitution glues us together, but for how long?
For that very reason, I think it is important that you see this latest dispatch from Mr. Adams in St. Petersburg. The rumor there is that the French and English are at a standstill. Napoleon needs a triumph. He's turning his eyes to a fresh conquest, Russia.
His ally.
Also is heaven, if we are to believe the Emperor's boasting. Mr. Adams thinks that within 5 years, Europe will be practically bankrupt, and we, for the first time, will be in a position of power. But we must use those years to implement our strength, not to dissipate it on a battlefield. Of course, all this is speculation on Mr. Adams' part.
I have every confidence in Mr. Adams. It's a pity that I must bring him home.
Supreme Court. Oh, John.
It is an honor.
We're living in Washington. The house will have to be large, of course, with a garden for the boys. Charles Francis barely remembers our country. What are you thinking, John?
Just that if one is to be put on a shelf, it is indeed a very high shelf.
The Supreme Court? A shelf? You've decided not to accept the appointment, haven't you? Why? Because of me?
Louisa, you are 7 months with child. Now, even with the safest passage, you would be delivered at sea. In these times, we'd be forced to take any ship that we found, no matter how cramped and dirty. What if there's fever aboard?
God will protect me.
Suppose we're taken to the blockade. There will be no midwife in a British cruiser.
Ships do get through the blockade.
You cannot risk it.
Then you go without me. I'll join you after the baby's born.
No, I'd be no husband to you if I did that.
Write President Madison tonight.
Louisa.
Ask that he hold the appointment. He'll do that. You're determined not to go.
I am not finished here.
Louisa Catherine, I baptize thee in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Ghost. We receive this child into the congregation of Christ's flock, and do anoint her with the sign of the cross, that thereafter she may dwell in the house of the Lord.
Councilman Meltzer, I've just heard. Is it true?
Does the treachery of the French astonish you, Mr. Adams? Yes. Napoleon has just invaded Poland. Our main forces have been driven back to Smolensk.
And you have made peace with England?
We need England now.
So, you have allied yourself with a country that has shown such hatred for mine.
The Tsar is determined to withstand any English pressures against you. He characterizes his attachment to America as obstinate.
My country will be as gratified as I am to hear that.
It is our earnest hope that you can escape the horror of this.